Yeah. Important. Stay with me. We're going to add in Howard Dean. So now we have two people who've run both national parties at one point in America. As we approach a different type of politics, Governor Dean, I mentioned to viewers, I was going to show, we dug up where some of this idea came from. It's not only a lie, which we reported, it not only has a cruel history, which we reported, it's also not even original. It's something DeSantis ripped from Tucker Carlson. Take a look.
His vineyard. It's a natural. Joe Biden took 70% of the vote on that small Massachusetts island. They are begging for more diversity. Why not send migrants there in huge numbers?
Howard, that was Tucker in July. Go ahead.
So, look, I'm against corporal punishment in middle school, but I think Carlson, DeSantis, and Abbott ought to be turned over somebody's knee and given a good spanking. This is beyond just being racist. These are ridiculous twits who are silly, and it's just so far beneath the dignity. Carlson has no dignity, but it's so far beneath the dignity of anybody in the governor's office in any state in the country. These guys need a big spanking and then go stand in the corner for a while because they're just silly. This is just stupidity and silliness, and I just can't believe people like that could be governor of any party of any state in the country.
Yeah, and Howard, President Biden has had his ups and downs going into these midterms, but lately has really focused on domestic breakthroughs with the climate spending, the student loan debt relief, and then trying to say, hey, we got to call out the Trump MAGA semi-fascists, quote unquote, for what they are. New York Times Magazine has a cover that shows that whether Trump runs or not, this is what we're looking at. You got your DeSantis right there, Howard.
He looks like Alfred E. Newman, doesn't he, on the cover of Mad Magazine? This is ridiculousness. This has gotten beyond just, whatever it is, making the libs mad or something like this. This is just, I can't believe these guys actually graduated from some university. And embarrassingly so, apparently DeSantis went to Yale. I don't know what the hell the admissions officer must have been drunk when they let him in. But look, this is ridiculous. This is not the United States of America. These are not our values. We don't treat people like this. Ironically, actually, Martha's Vineyard has a labor shortage. But you don't lie to people and put them on a bus. Michael was right. This is exactly how poor black people were treated by the Mississippi hierarchy in the deep South and in the civil rights movement. It wasn't funny then, and it's not funny now, and it's beneath the dignity of any public service. I think these guys ought to quit because they're wrecking the image of their states, and they're wrecking the image of the Democratic Party. The Republican Party.
Yeah, and I appreciate both of you being forthright on that. Michael, what about the intersection with propaganda here? I completely understand some people would say they don't want to hear any more words out of Tucker Carlson's mouth, and people have freedom in the country and the airwaves. They could turn me off, they could turn him off. Sure. And yet, as a matter of actual American policy, it would seem, as we just showed, that Mr. Carlson's penchant for propaganda and trolling is turning itself, at least in this state, into a type of policy, albeit a content-driven or prank-driven, and I don't mean that word to minimize this. We're covering this because it matters, but in that way, a type of trolling policy that is now real, Michael.
But it is, but it is an appropriate word in a real sense, Ari, because it is prankish, it is performative. It is, as Howard said, a moment where you take a politician and put them over your, collectively the country puts them, or the state put them over the knee, and they give them a nice little spanking on the behind. Here's the rub, though. Out of all of this performative BS that is about nothing, you're governing by fear, you're governing by culture war. The good citizens of Florida are going to reelect this man in November. And they're going to give him a significant margin. They're going to set him up to continue to perpetuate this, groom it for a national audience, to be consumed in a 2024 presidential cycle, whether he's the nominee or not. Because this is the short game you're looking at. The longer game is how we make this infection work everywhere, not just in red states, but how do we have it play out where that population in a blue state, and I live in one where you just saw who we put up as the nominee of the Republican Party here in Maryland, who is, a January 6th denier, bust people down there, advocating the Trumpist theology. That works everywhere. And so you got to give it credence and credibility. DeSantis and his ilk are trying to do that in, quote, good states, Florida, sort of blue, purple, red. It kind of moves in that space to justify it. So where are we 5 years from now? Where are we 6 years from now? And that's the thing you got to keep your eye on, is these people are setting us up. They're punking us. They're punking us real time to fall into this trap. And we're going to look around in years to come, and a lot of us on this air and other places are going to have a very different life under this regime.
Yeah, and it's interesting you use the word regime, which, of course, is different than the peaceful transfer of power. If you have something that is illegitimate, you got a lot of folks, as you mentioned, in that party running openly on stealing elections. Because if they promise you they're going to lie about the last one, then they're making a public vow to steal the next one. That's how out in the open it is. Howard, I'm curious what you think about a problem for the Republican Party on the issues of choice, women's rights, and abortion, because we've seen Lindsey Graham just run into an actual wall. It's been fascinating. Some of his Republican colleagues are actually concerned just on the politics. And as I mentioned, you've been a change agent at a time in the Democratic Party. You've also run the party. So I want to get your reaction to Lindsey Graham. Howard, I want you to stick with me. We got our shortest break. Howard Dean on that. Michael Steele stays when we're back in 60 seconds.